Stephen has been on the park board for over 9 years, I believe, somewhere.
Seems like longer.
It's been 9 or 10 years or so Stephen's been on the park board. So he's going to speak to you about that board and all its functions within the city. So, Stephen?
As our mayor said, sit on the Parks Board. Actually, he came from the Parks Board before he moved over to the mayor. Sat with us for a little bit. The Parks Board, as it currently exists, was formed in 1997. And state law structured a way to build parks boards so that the parks could be essentially dealt with on their own. The issue was that with the money situation as it sits in cities, it's very difficult to make sure that everyone gets their own agendas progressed. And so the Parks Board is a little different than most because the Parks Board has some of their money is dedicated exclusively for the parks. It's ear tagged only for the parks. It can't be used in other places. And part of that money is the sales tax, which in August of 2004 got taken to the voters, which is what is required to increase the sales tax. And it was designated a park tax, and it brought it up to a half a cent on every dollar. So a half a cent on every sales tax dollar goes to the parks, and that is really the vast majority of the operating sum now for the parks. There's also a 15-cent levy when you pay your property taxes at the end of the year. 15 cents of that per dollar goes to the Parks Department and is also utilized. And then there are various other odds and ends. This year, along with many other years, there's a stipend that is taken from the general fund, which is essentially the pool of money that the city operates with, and has been transferred over into the park board fund so that it can be used. And I believe that if that budget all the way went through, then that was ear tagged for exactly one pool payment. And it's not a, that's not a great amount, but I think that, and I've always thought this, that it really speaks to the Board of Aldermen and the city that wants to make a statement that says, we're still concerned about the parks. It's still something we want to make sure is progressing the way that we want it to progress. There are 9 members on the park board, 3-year terms, and they're appointed by the mayor and approved by the aldermen. And so 3 members a year are either reappointed or new members are found. We have a Parks Board president who's in attendance, Mr. Stockton, a vice president, and some other various officers. I happen to be treasurer right now. And the real distinction for the Parks Board versus all the rest of them is kind of how we operate more on a side of the alderman than underneath the alderman. The aldermen really approve all the budgetary and finances for all of the departments except for the Parks Board. Because of the way that the state laws are written and regulated, all of the Parks Board money, which is the state and or the sales tax and the levy, are under the sole control of the Parks Board department. So that Parks and Rec Board is the only people that really get to make the decision. Now, if we're not doing a good job, then they can reappoint other people. They can, they can change it afterwards. But we employ 3 full-time people, and the Parks Board are the sole authority in charge of the Parks Director, which is Lindsay Adams. And underneath her are 2 full-time positions of maintenance and an administrative assistant. There's also an open position right now, which is the recreation coordinator, which at this time we are not filling due to lack of funds. As has been spoken to before, due to the fact that we're mainly sales tax. When sales go down, when the economy goes down, that really hits us as hard as it hits anybody, because that is the vast majority of our budget. And so as that goes, so goes the parks. See, I wanted to bring to mention Partners for the Odessa Parks and Recreation is a civic organization that it's a not-for-profit organization that supports the Parks Department. They are their own individual entity. They run according to themselves. They have their own board, which meets Sundays, not a regular schedule right now, but they meet on Sundays, and they have their own direction, but their direction is to support the Parks Department. That's in their goals and objectives. It's in their bylaws. And so that is a very good way, because the members of the Parks Board have to be drawn from the citizens of Odessa. And as we all know, just like the school board, we really pull from the same type of area that the school board pulls from. You know, if you live just outside the city of Odessa, you're most likely, this is the city that you're going to come to have your children participate in activities, to potentially participate in activities yourself. And so the Partners for Odessa Parks and Rec is a very good place that if you can't get on boards here because you're not a citizen, it's a very good place to sit on a board and help that course of direction. We also always take any members that want to speak, any citizens that speak. We have an opportunity for that at the beginning of any of our Parks Board meeting, and we're more than happy to hear any concerns. You're more than welcome to call any of us. Our phone numbers are all posted, and you can always call the office here, Lindsay, and she'll direct you. We put together the pool. I always want to brag about that. So we put the pool together. That's been one of the big major projects that we've done with this. Since 2004, we've built up our reserves enough so that we could sustain a potential payment for this pool. That's one of the reasons we don't have a recreation coordinator right now, is because we need to maintain that payment towards the pool. While this pool as opposed to the old pool is doing much better financially. It actually, without the payment itself, is breaking even, is making a little bit of money from time to time. And the old pool was always, with no payment having to be made, it was always bleeding money out. It was always costing both the city and the Parks Department to run. And so it's actually, while we are paying it off, and it will take us a little while to pay off, it's actually, at least we're making some progress in that direction. At least we're building something. And potentially that's what we're looking for in the future. This was our first project. We're looking for more projects, and of course we have to find the funding before we get those projects.